Hello, friends. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this special webinar on being a force for healing, teaching mindfulness and compassion in precarious times. My name's Tami Simon. I'm the founder of Sounds True. And in this webinar, we are featuring two beloved meditation teachers, Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield. Tara and Jack have partnered with Sounds True to create the Mindfulness Meditation Teacher Certification Program. And if you think that's a mouthful, it is, which is why it Sounds True. We call it MMTCP, and that's how you will hear me referring to the program, MMTCP. It's an 18-month program. Graduates are certified by the Greater Good Science Center of UC Berkeley. And you ready for this? We've had more than 8,000 people already become certified mindfulness meditation teachers through this program. We're currently in the process of registering people for our next cohort, our 6th cohort of the program. And in this webinar, you're going to learn more about MMTCP, what it means to be a force for healing at this time, a precarious time, as I think we all sense and feel and are searching for our own way to bring our hearts and full generosity forward. Right now, the program is registering people at the lowest price that will be registering people all year. The price goes up on April 1st, and if you want to learn more, you can go to mmtcp.soundstrue.com. Okay, Jack, Tara, come on, welcome.
Hi, Tami. Thank you for hosting us and being part of it. Hi, Tara.
Hey, oh my gosh, this is great. And I've been watching where you're from, those of you that have hopped on. Welcome, welcome. Um, Tammy didn't mention that we have graduates from over 75 countries. And so it makes me really happy to see the spread, the diversity of who's here today. And we thought we'd start in the spirit of what we're doing with just a few moments to arrive together. And so wherever you are, whatever part of the globe, in whatever room or space you're in, take these moments to bring your attention inward, to let your body settle a bit and come into stillness. And as part of creating this community for these moments, let's breathe together. You might take a nice, long, deep in-breath, filling the chest and the lungs. Hold for a moment and just feel that presence that's right here. And then a slow out breath, slow enough so you can feel the sensations as they leave the nostrils. And then inhaling deeply again, filling the chest and the lungs. Hold for a moment. And then that slow, gradual release and sense of letting go through your body as the breath leaves. Yeah. Inhaling again, nice deep full in-breath. Hold for a moment. And with the out-breath, softening down the length of your body, letting go, letting go. So as the breath resumes its natural rhythm, you can sense the quality of presence that's here just in a few moments. Observing and feeling the inflow and the outflow of the breath. And perhaps scanning through the body, sensing what might want to let go a little more right now. Any habitual tension or tightness. Maybe softening the shoulders, letting go there. Letting the hands rest in an easy, effortless way. Let the chest be open, the belly soft. So you can feel the breath moving through your whole body. Listening to and feeling the whole moment. And as a way of closing, you might sense your heart, whatever the state of your heart is right now. And just notice what happens if you offer some gesture of kindness inward. Some sincere offering of care to the life that's right here. And sensing how that space of care, that heart space, includes all of us, includes all beings, so that we can listen to and speak from that place of awake heart, of caring. Thank you, friends. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tara. Amazing how much we can shift our state in just a few minutes like that. Thank you. As part of the production of this special webinar, we asked people to submit their questions in advance. What do you most want to hear Jack and Tara speak to? And we received two general questions that if you saw the list that we received, you'd say these were two big themes that people brought forward. So I want to start there. The first question was, how do I calm myself amid the emotional overwhelm I'm experiencing right now from current events? Jack, why don't you start us off?
I will, thank you. And it's a question people have been asking me a lot. And in my own life, I've done a few very simple things of turn off the news and stop reading so much. It doesn't take but 15 minutes a day to get caught up. And to take walks in nature, these are the obvious things. But I just finished leading a seminar for 10,000 people in Ukraine who said, we're in the middle of war that we don't want. There's bombs, we're hiding. How do we regulate ourselves? And I've also, been teaching. I get a call from the CEO of this big company saying, with the oil shock and the war going on, how do we manage? And one of the beautiful things from MMTCP is for the CEO, I taught him practices of loving kindness. He said, I can't sleep. Here's what will help you. And this was what worked. For others, it was how to sweep through the body and release the tension and release it back to Mother Earth so you don't hold the conflict in your body. For others, it was to tune into what's your best intention instead of the mind spinning, to get quiet and tune into yourself and say, what is my highest intention in the midst of all this difficulty? And when that begins to arise, it's like the compass of the heart gets set in the right direction. For others, it's to remember all those who've stood up over the generations, that your ancestors and survivors, and imagine or sense that you are being held by the energy of so many beings who care. And so in the program, we will teach you 6 or 8 or 10 practices, ones that I use and these other people have found valuable as ways to manage and steady and center yourself. And even as I talk with you, feel yourself seated, connected with the earth, breathing with all, as Tara said. There's a way to center yourself that allows you not only to go through difficult times, but actually to be an agent of steadiness and peace for the people and world around you.
Just to unmute there, Tara.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. What it made me think of, and this is one of the main things you find in MMTCP. When I'm doing teaching, when I do online webinars, and this is what comes up over and over. I'm overwhelmed, how to deal with it. Always, I'll ask how many others are feeling this right now. And what we find out is that this is not personal. We're in an atmosphere that's really toxic, that's really difficult. And there's something really powerful about realizing that this nervous system's doing what all our nervous systems are doing, and it's a sensitive response. And that when we meditate with others, when we're with others, you know the research, if you hold somebody's hand, your fear level goes down. One of the things we emphasize is the power of connecting with others, that itself regulates and opens us. So that includes pets, and that includes trees, it includes walking on the earth, but just to reach out to others. We need to be together in this.
The second most common question we received, here it is. The biggest feeling I have, said the people who were writing in, is one of outrage at our current government. I feel angry much of the time. What is a mindful perspective towards the feeling of outrage?
I'm glad to start in on that, being one who knows outrage inside out. That, first of all, it's really natural that when we perceive something that's unjust or harmful, to feel outrage. And the invitation of mindfulness isn't to get rid of anything, it's to meet what's coming up in a way that lets our heart be awake and our mind be clear. So, with anger and outrage, one friend of mine put it this way: anger is initiatory, it's not transformational. And what that means is we honor when it comes up, it's an intelligent message to pay attention. And then we deepen attention and find out what's under. And what I find, and this is often with MMTCP in our groups and so on, what we'll find is layered under there is grief, that there's some heartbreak that was meant to be felt. Because if we can feel that, we can feel our caring. Always under outrage, and I find this in myself every day, is care. There's something I'm caring about. And if we can get in touch with the caring that's under it, then the way we act is going to be more intelligent. So mindfulness reveals that. And it does one other thing that feels important to name right here, which is one of the habits of outrage is to blame, like the bad actor, the leader, the group that seems so offensive. And I think Thich Nhat Hanh said it best, that man is not the enemy. What mindfulness reveals is under the surface, it's the conditioning that we all have, the fear, the aggression, the unmet needs, the trauma, and the systems that we're in that amplify it, economic inequities and patriarchy and the dominance hierarchies. The point is this, that if we're blaming individuals, groups, we're not going to pay attention to the real causes that we need to bring healing to in order to be more free.
And I want to follow up from that, Tara, because that feels so important. And it's kind of related to the next question I know you, Tami, had put on the table. The question of meditation, teaching it seems like a kind of indirect or long-term way to help the world, which is an acute crisis. I remember Thich Nhat Hanh saying that when the crowded refugee boats, the Vietnamese refugee boats, met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person stayed steady and calm, it showed the way for everyone to survive. What's true is that no amount of AI and computers and um, space technology and biotechnology and financial technology and that is going to stop continuing warfare and divisiveness and hatred and racism and climate change. because all these arise from the human heart, from those very forces you were talking about, Tara, of our fear and separation and grasping. And the root transformation that's needed is a change of human consciousness itself. And that's where we have to start. The great global peacemaker, John Paul Lederach, who worked in Sudan and Philippines and Bosnia and all kinds of war situations, he said, you don't build a bridge by starting in the middle. You start it where you are. And so with these trainings, we begin to not only teach people how to be an island of peace in themselves, how to handle the emotions and the fears and become that person on the boat, but when you do, then, and when you teach a class or school or wherever it is that you become the teacher for, you start to spread the capacity of being present in this world as a force for benefit. And that's really the thing that's needed more than anything. And it's immensely satisfying to do it. People respond because they're so hungry for the kind of well-being that comes from these practices and reminders, because we know it in ourselves in some way, the reminders that we can do this, that we can become that person on the boat.
Jack, what you were saying was just making me think how many MMTCP grads have told me that, you know, they're involved with different social change kind of initiatives, and how many people in those groups and how many activists are coming to them for a way to come back to that heart and to that clarity that gets kind of scrambled when we're not having these practices. And I'm right now involved with a group of Israeli activists and Palestinian activists that are working together doing just that. It's a group called Active Spirit, that they've been spending 15, 20 years in this intractable, horrific, divided, suffering place, and knowing that only if they can connect to where they experience belonging, because the suffering's from severed belonging, that they can come back and experience that with each other, you know, sense our shared humanity. Is it going to be really possible to make any change over time? So these practices, and so many in MMTCP have reported it, they remind us of what most matters. And they give us a vision. You know, they give us a vision of what's possible in terms of a more loving and just future.
You know, listening to you both, it's very compelling to be grounded in mindfulness and compassion as a starting point. So my question is, what is it in our contemporary mindset that quickly goes to this place? That's kind of irrelevant. You know, that's not what we need right now. It's an acute crisis. Come on, like what is it that has people shoo away mindfulness and compassion practice as this kind of extra luxury that we don't have time for right now?
I actually think that it's the underneath, as Tara was speaking about, it's the fear and the grief. And in some way, we are triggered. It's almost like a traumatic response to what's happening. I have to go do something. It's a kind of panic response, or I don't have time. And the real answer is to take a breath and realize that it's being where we are, to actually be able to tolerate both the discomfort and the fear, and underneath it, as Tara talks about, the deep caring and longing. When we're in that connection, then we become a benefit. So one of the beautiful things you learn from the trainings, and that if you then go out and teach others from this program, is how to not be in that reactive state and feel like you've got to fight, flight, and freeze, run, but actually you can be present and be that person. Again, that one person on the boat.
Okay, we have more questions here that were pre-submitted. I also want to mention to all of you who are joining us here in the Zoom room, please feel free to write your questions in the chat and we'll weave in as many as we can. One of the themes that emerged was, look, now we're in the world of meditation apps. There's so many meditation training videos you can watch on YouTube. Why be a teacher? Do we need more teachers? Really?
Well, I'm going to go on for a little bit and then Tara, I'm sure will add. But one of the beautiful and most important things about what this training offers is that it is a training from person to person. It's not apps, it's not AI. And the great Zen expression is that compassion, loving kindness, awakening is transmitted from warm hand to warm hand or warm heart to warm heart. And the personal connections that we have with one another and how we awaken together or how we navigate this world are going to become even more valuable during the AI explosion. We actually need that. And what this training does, you have 24 meetings with this small mentoring group and your mentor over the course of this time. You have other special meetings on various themes. You connect with the other people along with your mentor. It's a very personal and immediate and human training that invites you to do the same thing with others.
I mean, if you think about it, if any of you listening, if you ask yourself, what really were moments in my life when something deeply shifted, they usually happen in a relational field. Relating deeply with our inner being and with each other. I think of one woman who said, it was talking to my minister who showed me how to do a loving kindness practice and did it with me. Or one person said, my yoga teacher leads us all to meditate together, and that field makes me feel I have a refuge. That I've never felt so peaceful. Or a social worker at an addiction facility taught those that she was working with to pause and breathe, and they just felt like empowered by it. It's that energy of the field that's really alive and relational and intimate. That's what changes us.
And we're going to go in and answer some of the additional questions that are coming up about the training. But for a moment, here you two are. I mean, you're the old dogs. You're the goats, right? That's what the kids say. I don't know. I hear people saying that all the time now. The greatest of all time about sports players. Here you are. You created this program for a visionary reason. How you structured it, how you designed it. And I'd love to hear what was going on for you in the creation, in the origin of MMTCP as you're offering to people.
Well, first of all, Tami, I'm looking at your really beautiful curly white gray hair and thinking, okay, we're not the only OGs on this.
No, I know.
And you look
I know.
great, by the way. I'm just
Thank you.
celebrating.
Thank you
You're
very much. But
dazzling
all the
this
hairs
time.
are great. Yep.
One of the things that I learned, and it's so important, is that what we care about is really intimate and close. It's not far away. And that it doesn't take very long for somebody to go from being frightened or lost or angry or caught up or deeply disconnected from themselves in various ways. In a few minutes with a good guided meditation, people can go, breathe and come back. And with a little bit more training and understanding, oh, here's the way that I believe these thoughts or that I'm clinging or those emotions seem overwhelming. And oh, I can rest in loving awareness, in mindfulness. Oh, this is possible. And it turns out that the medicine, if you will, of what tends the heart and steadies the body and gives us a place to then act in the world with benefit is not far away. And so when we started the program, it wasn't like, okay, now you have to go to India or Burma or someplace and train in some monastery for years. You know, it's there in you in some way to be supported and awakened for the trainees. And then that possibility of going and touching another person and saying, here, you can do this in wherever it is, in a school, in a family, in a community, that you carry a possibility and it doesn't take much. And so it's sort of like activating this in people. And it's a beautiful thing to see, to watch the people go through the program and gradually mature over the 18 months or so and do their practicum and realize, oh, I really have something that I can offer to somebody else. And it doesn't take that long to make a difference in someone's life.
The only thing to add, and thank you for that, Jack. When we started this, we looked around the world and said, okay, this is the medicine people need. And there's so many people that don't have access. And so initially we were a little shy about doing something that was online until we started really engaging with it and being really creative and intimate in the ways the interactions happened. And wow, to see places around the world that have never had teachers, to see teachers that are in different professions, just in their profession teaching, it's been so powerful to see. And as Jack said, we could see people that might not themselves identify as, oh, I am a teacher, but have all this amazing natural wisdom and capacity. And then the joy of finding out that they can serve in this way. It's quite beautiful and powerful to behold.
And someone did ask, well, hey, what about the inaccessibility because of the high price of this program? And what I want to share is that we have a scholarship program available. We're doing our best to meet people in providing as many scholarships as possible, fundraising for that. And it's a very high touch program, which is why it has the cost that it has, because there's a mentorship level, small group meetings, a practicum. It's high touch. You have a lot of access to meeting in groups and working with a mentor. And I wonder if you could each speak to that. One of the questions that came in is, well, how much Jack and Tara am I going to get? How much will I be working with mentors? Who are the mentors? Are they trained?
I'm glad to start, but just to say that all the teachings, the recorded teachings, are primarily me and Jack, and also some other very well-known, wonderful teachers. And we also do monthly live groups with the whole community. So that's our way of being involved. And the mentors anchor things with 3 one-on-one meetings. Each of you will have 3 one-on-one meetings with mentors and a small group meeting every month. And as Jack mentioned, peer groups through the year. There are, Tami put the word high touch, there are so many points of contact. It's really going to be up to you how much you take advantage of, because there's a lot.
All right, let me ask a follow-up question. We received this in advance. How does someone know when they're ready to become a teacher? This listener writes in, I'm no Tara Brach, and I'm not a Jack Kornfield. I feel like I'm just a beginner on the spiritual path and would be a sad role model for others to turn to. I mean, I binge YouTube videos and I can't even stick to my diet. How do I know if I am, quote, spiritually mature, unquote, enough to get up there in front of a group and teach?
That is a beautiful question.
Love it, love it. Well, can I just jump in, Jack, just for a
Yeah,
moment?
yeah.
Because what I have to tell you, what flies to my mind, my early days of teaching, I can't tell you how many times I had the thought, I'm no Jack Kornfield. I mean, it was so easy to compare, and he's an amazing teacher, and also to judge ourselves. And so I wrote Radical Acceptance because I was so harsh and unforgiving toward myself. And this is mostly what I want to say, that harshness actually became the place for tender presence. So whatever you're naming about, well, I do this and I do that, and I'm unfit here and there, your humanness is not a problem. the places we get stuck. And this is whether it's addictive behavior or defensiveness or aggression or stuff we're working through, past traumas, anxiety. That's exactly where we can learn about self-compassion and compassion for others. And really, the people I send people to for help, whether they're teachers or therapists, it's because they know something inside out, which you will too. So you are ready. You are ready if you're drawn to practicing mindfulness and compassion. If you really have this trust that there's something healing in this, if you're able to be honest, as this person was, about your experience and humble, if you care about suffering and you want to serve, that's it. The rest will unfold.
It's been beautiful to watch people come into the program, some with the kind of doubts that you express. And just in the process of beginning to both learn it in yourself and wrestle, as we all do, with our own foibles and our own humanness. And then it turns out teaching becomes a practice. And you're there and you have to sort it out. And if you become honest, as Tara said, it's quite endearing, actually. Oh, we're in this together. Here's what's helped me. And then part of the training is to teach you how to bring that wisdom out of the group. What have others learned about this? How do we do this together? And you start to feel a camaraderie of people who are not like, oh, we're the great accomplished, meditators, but we're human beings learning how to do this beautifully. And something changes in you. It is actually a spiritual journey for yourself. Um, and that's the game. And it's very exciting.
Someone wrote in, would it be of benefit for me to do this program just for my own personal growth and not necessarily to become a meditation teacher?
People have asked that many times, and of course it will be. It would be a huge benefit, but also a kind of interesting thing happens when you're surrounded by people who are going to go and use it in their clinic or use it in their school or business or something. It kind of rubs off. And sometimes people get surprised, not that you need to, that, oh, I think actually I might have something to say or teach. But even if not, it's one of the most life-changing programs you could do. And it transforms you and it makes connections inwardly and with others and teachings that are life-changing.
Often when people ask me that, um, I'll say, if they say, what if it's for my own personal growth? I'll say that this program's only a match if you really, really want to go deeper on the path. That's a part of it. And I don't think it matters much whether you have a plan or an intention to teach in a formal way, because you teach from who you are. And there are people that end up not teaching formally, and that's fine. I'm thinking of, one grad, she shared mindful movement with her children. And then her children's friends started joining in, and then their parents wanted to be part of it. And so a little kind of social circle grew out of that. It can be with our friends and our family. And as Jack said, often it ends up that we have no vision right now of what's possible, and it turns into something so much more than we could have anticipated. So it's just going in open.
I'd like to ask something from my personal experience for a moment and see what you both have to say to this, which is, I think, as you both know, I taught meditation for a period of time. And one of the things I discovered was what I would call the quote unquote inner teacher, that there was a voice in me that started teaching me, the person who was sitting there teaching, started teaching me things that I didn't even know that I knew, that somehow it started happening. I was like, oh my God, this is great. I'm learning from this inner teacher figure who's teaching me all kinds of cool things, as well as sharing with the group. And I wonder, is that a common experience that lights up for people?
Well, Tami, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful question and kind of a profound one. Like, where does inspiration come from? Where do our best thoughts come from? I mean, you can sort of personify it as like the great inner teacher that's teaching you. But what happens is when we quiet the mind and open the heart and set an intention, then the universe collaborates in some way. We'll call it that. And so you realize, oh, there's wisdom that when I get quiet, I remember I can share this with others. I know this. And it's one of the beautiful things that happens as you start to teach, that just as you describe by whatever language, you get quiet, somebody asks you a question, and your heart goes out to them. And then some understanding from your history and practice and training and something greater, which is we're all connected with the great wisdom of humanity. It's in you, and it's being invited, and then it speaks through you. And it's kind of a far out thing to see what happens when you get quiet in that way and let what's deeper come through you, if you will, you know? And for me, whether people enter the program with doubts about themselves or how they do, that's actually a healthy thing. If someone was entering saying, I'm going to become a great teacher, I'd be more worried because it's not about you. It's really about tuning into something that you have already known, that we already know, and inviting that to open in the hearts of the people you're with.
I mentioned that for a period of time, I taught meditation, and then I decided to bring it into business leadership and into my own creative life and not teach as a formal meditation teacher. And one of the questions we received is, how do people who work in different professions potentially use this teacher training? For example, doctors or yoga teachers or people who work in other kinds of helping professions. Jack, you want to go ahead and
Sure,
start?
I'll start. Um, there's almost no profession where it's not helpful. You know, I was meeting with nurses who work in the NICU, in the neonatal ICU, you know, holding babies whose lives are at risk, who might survive and might not. And the ability to be present and hold it with one another, to carry the love and also the intensity of that care has made a huge difference. And then we get you know, feedback from some of the women who've gone through MMTCP who were working in a clinic in Pakistan, in Peshawar, or in, you know, one of the Pakistani cities. Um, and they say it's so helpful to our staff, or we get you know, a note from somebody who's using the mindfulness in their school in Kenya, or the one who's in Pittsburgh and helping to change the educational system there. So there are so many places that long for the very simple trainings of how do you steady yourself? How do you come grounded and open-hearted to the work you're doing? I work a lot in Silicon Valley, and I can assure you, because I've done trainings with the kind of top AI teams, they need it. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. Let's take a pause, ground, center yourself, fill yourself with loving kindness or compassion that informs your work, and then ask yourself, you know, what's your best intention? And that inner listening to intention becomes a kind of guide star for what you do. And you can return to it and say, is this really following my deep intention? So it's tremendously helpful in almost every circumstance where people live and work. And yoga teachers will say, oh, I focused on the body, but now this really taught me how to integrate mindfulness, loving awareness, compassion, loving kindness in the movement and in the whole panoply of what yoga can offer.
Anything to add, Tara?
No, it's more what I'm sensing is that it just doesn't matter what profession or line of work, because I just hear people saying, "Oh, I set up something at lunchtime," for everybody there. It's like it affects how you do your work, but also it's just an opportunity wherever we are to offer it to others.
Okay, another question that came in about the program specifically. What other practices and topics beyond mindfulness will I learn to teach?
Yeah, so first of all, you bring mindfulness and sometimes the rain practice to this range of emotions. So it's like anything that's coming up is fair for it. Fear, grief, anger. We also there's a huge emphasis on the heart practices like loving kindness and forgiveness and compassion. But I want to just mention a few areas that really set MMTCP apart from other similar trainings. And one of them is we do quite a focus on healing relationships because all of life is relational. We're in relationship with the earth, our larger body, and with each other, with all beings. And so, how do we wake up in that? And how do we deal with conflict? And we spend some real time with that. Another is trauma. What does it mean to have trauma sensitive mindfulness? And that is something, given we're living in such traumatizing times, how do we regulate these nervous systems? What we've been talking about. Another area that's very near and dear to us is multicultural sensitivity. And I know in our larger culture, the pendulum is, going anti-woke in the sense of going against programs of diversity and equity, inclusivity. And that is just not the case here. It requires huge sensitivity and attention to our own biases, and we all have them, racial and otherwise, to be able to teach where there's different intersecting identities, race and gender and religion and class. So we have to face our own conditioning, and it's a very courageous and powerful stream in our program. We have Rhonda McGee and others that are really powerful teachers in that. And then the last thing I'll mention is that the way this is designed is there is just no separation between the inner practices and living on this planet with kindness and compassion. So we have a lot on what does it mean to bring compassion into action? I mean, what does it mean to be part of a larger society where there's such a huge shadow that is taking over, so it seems? How do we feel our belonging and how do we act together to serve the greater good? So it's very dimensional, this program.
Just to focus for a moment a little bit more on the subtitle of our webinar, which is Teaching Mindfulness and Compassion in Precarious Times. You both talked in the beginning about, yes, all the feelings of overwhelm and outrage that many people feel at this time and how to bring mindfulness and compassion to that. But I wonder how you each see the precarious times we're in and the possibility for this surging capacity. Jack, I was so moved when you talked about how it doesn't take that much for the love inside of us and our innate capacity and innate goodness to come online and start teaching, that it's, combustible. This is my language. And, the fire gets lit, teacher to new teacher. And here we go. And like, I have a sense, just to say, that there's a growing readiness for people to be mindfulness and compassion teachers at this time because of the intense pressure in the evolutionary process that we're in. And I wonder how you both see that.
My dear friend Joanna Macy, who was a sage and system theorist and spiritual teacher, described this time as the great turning, that on the earth we have gotten lost in a kind of exploitation of the world economy and view, whether it's of resources or of one another, and it's not working anymore. And we can all feel it in some way, the limitations. And therefore, she says, humanity is now in this crisis, if you want to call it, where we're being forced in some way to wake up and realize with climate change, with AI, with all these things, we're much more interdependent than we knew. And this crisis is turning us from exploitation to a sense of connection that we will need to find. And in that way, you could see it as, look through the lens of tragedy and difficulty, which is here, but also of possibility. And it's actually, we're being called to it. And both whether it's in the training or for humanity as a whole, it's time for us to change consciousness and realize this interconnection. And part of what the training does also is connect you with that field of those who see this already and want to support it in the world.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what comes to mind for me is that if we look at our own lives and say, again, when did I grow? When was there some sort of radical shift? It's often when we hit real darkness and suffering. And in Buddhism, it's that suffering is the agent that forces us to deepen attention. And I think this happens collectively too, that there's a kind of dialectic that in the darkness, there is a light that wants to shine forth. And so this is sensing that, calling it forward, calling us forward, having us be part of that. And in evolutionary terms, we are, in a hijack where there's a huge amount of threat and fear. And that's one of our evolutionary systems, is to get aggressive and tight. But we have another evolutionary system that actually can perceive our belonging, and feel care and compassion and collaboration and wake up together. And so I think what this program is really offering is for those that feel the sense of longing for the light, longing to be part of the light, longing to bring it forward, to give the tools that actually cultivate and strengthen compassion. And that, to me, is right at the core of what our world most needs right now.
We're going to conclude our time together in just a few minutes with a final guided meditation that Jack will lead us through. Before we get there, I want to let people know again that we're registering people right now for our 6th cohort of the Mindfulness Meditation Teacher Certification Program. It starts in February of next year. We register people throughout 2026 for the cohort. And we have the lowest price available now through April 1st, if you're interested in registering. And just to ask a couple more design questions that have come in. How much time and energy do I need to commit to this program every week? I have a full-time job. I'm afraid this is going to be too much time for me. What's involved?
Most people find that it's doable being a parent, having work that's full-time and so forth. It is at least several hours a week, but it's not overwhelming. You get to watch the teachings in the hours that work for you. So there's a lot of material that you can fit in when you have time. The monthly mentoring groups, for example, they're scheduled way in advance, so you can put them into your calendar easily. And we all have to make choices about what do we do with our life, you know, um, with your work or with your family. You still have to spend the time to care for yourself, to regulate, to build up what your best being can be. And it's not surprising and beautiful to see that as people get into the program and try it, it starts to naturally weave into their life without being overwhelming, but really being a benefit.
One person's asking, are there papers to write and presentations? And so I thought maybe I'd just say that no, you have optional reading. And some people spend a lot more time than others. Optional reading. You can spend more time on the community platform and discussions or less time. It's a really rich training with a lot of options, and you can customize it to make it work for you. The big thing that you're asked is the practicum, which is such an amazing process because you'll have huge support from the mentors and us and so on in doing it. You'll be teaching 4 to 6 week mindfulness course, and that's where people are anxious ahead of time and feel an amazing sense of gratification and confidence and renewed trust in what's possible after. So that's the second part of the program that you'll get to explore that.
It's an 18-month training. Somebody asked how long it takes. And, you know, I've heard from some people, God, 18 months, that's so long. And I think, oh my gosh, that's nothing. You know, in a year and a half, everything we've talked about and the inner capacity that you develop, well worth the commitment to a container that will take you through that whole process. Okay, before we go to the concluding meditation, can you share with us some specific success stories about alumni who have completed the program and how they're bringing it out into the world?
Yara.
Yeah, well, some of you remember the devastating hurricane in Puerto Rico, and one of our alumni was from Puerto Rico, and she was amazing, both helping in a very physical way, but also giving a place for people to come and to practice. Um, Everywhere that there's been these major crises, I am just so moved by the alumni that are there to offer support. Right now, two of our MMTCP people are teaching those in Gaza, and oh my gosh, teaching ways to regulate and work with the trauma in Gaza. And another graduate has created the largest mindfulness community in Israel. So I'm naming the hot spots. But what I guess I want to get across is that whether it's teachers bringing it to the classroom, Jack mentioned Pittsburgh, all the principals going to learn mindfulness in one large city, or I think it was Pittsburgh, I might have that wrong. Working in DC, we have people in the prisons, people on Capitol Hill teaching. You know, it's been amazing where graduates are going and the kind of impact that they're having.
Yeah, one of the great joys that I experience as I travel around is people will come up to me in the airport or, you know, in a restaurant or something periodically and say, Jack, I did the MMTCP program and it changed my life. Thank you. Thank you. And there's a kind of joy in connecting. It's like you become part of a really special community, and it does change your life. And it's expressed in all these different unique ways, but underneath it, it's really becoming a force for extending your understanding and love wherever you are. And it's just magic to run into all the other MMTCP people and have those smiles and say, yes, this really changed how I'm working, changed my life.
You know, I've been at this Sounds True thing for more than 40 years. And one of the things I feel most proud of is the 8,000 mindfulness meditation teachers who have been certified by the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley and who are out there teaching and embodying these practices in whatever they're doing in their life. And that's why I'm here right now hosting this, because I'm so committed to magnetizing more and more people worldwide to participate and become certified teachers. And Jack, with that, let's go ahead and have our final communion together as a webinar group here with you leading us.
Thank you, Tami, so much. So let's just practice again together for a bit. let yourself settle wherever you're seated, and when you're ready, let your eyes close gently. Take a couple of long, deep breaths. Let your eyes and face be soft. Loosen the jaw. Maybe roll your head in a little circle to release your neck and let it find a simple upright. Let the shoulders relax and the arms and hands rest easily. And feel the weight of your body and settle into where you're seated so you can feel how gravity is connecting you with the earth beneath you. A steadiness, a strength. And now with this embodied presence, feeling your breath, sense or feel that you are breathing in an ocean of air, connecting us all. Each breath in and out breathes with the trees around you and the creatures, large and small, the humans and animals. We're all breathing and exchanging and living in the sea of air and care. And with each breath, let the mind quiet, the heart soften, just here and now. And in this quiet presence, bring to mind someone you care about a lot. And feel the natural loving kindness as you picture or remember them. And also let yourself be aware of the ways that they struggle, as all human beings do. And notice what arises is your natural care and compassion. When we quiet ourselves and tune in deeply, this is what comes. And if we took the time now, you could picture others and others. And notice how there's a natural love and also a care for the ways they struggle. The great heart of compassion starts to open. We're all together in this, on this beautiful earth. And finally, let a deep intention arise when you see beings that you can care for who also struggle as we do in this life. That compassion. What is your best and deepest intention as you quiet yourself and tune your heart? You can know. It's setting the compass of your heart to live with your best, most compassionate, wakeful intention. What is it? And if you're comfortable, put your hand on your heart for just a moment to hold and remember this goodness in you. And when you're ready, let your eyes open again. And thank you for being here, participating, being with Tami and Tara and myself and so many others.
Thank you, friends. Thanks,
Blessings
Jack. Thanks,
each.
Tara.
Thank you, Tami. Thank you, Jack. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
who are here.